So I think everyone here in this room and most Americans have come to appreciate the aggressiveness with which Russia uses active measures or covert influence operations, propaganda, call them whatever you will, as your agencies assess they did in 2016 and hacking into those emails and releasing them, as news reports suggest they did in the French election last week. That's one reason why I sought to revive the Russian Active Measures Working Group in the FY17 Intelligence Authorization Act. These activities, though, go far beyond elections, I think, as most of our witnesses know. Former Director of the CIA, Bob Gates, in his memoir, From the Shadows, detailed Soviet covert influence campaigns designed to slow or thwart the U.S. development of nuclear delivery systems and warheads, missile defense systems, and deployment of intermediate-range nuclear forces systems to Europe. Specifically, on page 260 of his memoir, he writes, "During the period, the Soviets mounted a massive covert action operation aimed at thwarting INF deployments by NATO. We at CIA devoted tremendous resources to an effort at the time to uncovering this Soviet covert campaign. Director Casey summarized this extraordinary effort in a paper he sent to Bush, Schultz, Weinberger, and Clark on January 18, 1983. We later published it and circulated it widely within the government and to the Allies, and finally provided an unclassified version for the public to use," end quote. I'd like to thank the CIA for digging up this unclassified version of the document and providing it to the committee, Soviet Strategy to Derail U.S. INF Deployment, specifically undermining NATO's solidarity in those deployments. I'd ask unanimous consent that it be included as part of the hearing transcript. And since the inmates are running the asylum, hearing no objection, we'll include it in the transcript. Director Pompeo, earlier this year, Dr. Rory Godson testified that he believed that Russia was using active measures and covert influence efforts to undermine our nuclear modernization efforts, our missile defense deployments, and the INF Treaty in keeping with these past practices. To the best of your ability in this setting, would you agree with the assessment that Russia is likely using such active measures to undermine U.S. nuclear modernization efforts and missile defenses?
Yes.
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, the FY17 Intelligence Authorization Act included two unclassified provisions that I authored. One would be restarting that old active measures working group. A second would require additional scrutiny of Russian embassy officials who travel more than the prescribed distance from their duty station, whether it's their embassy or a consulate around the United States. In late 2016, when that bill was on the verge of passing, I personally received calls from high-ranking Obama administration officials asking me to withdraw them from the bill. I declined. The bill did not pass. It passed last week as part of the FY17 spending bill. I did not receive any objection from Trump administration officials to include from our intelligence community. Director Coates, are you aware of any objection that the Trump administration had to my two provisions?
No, I'm not aware of any objection.
Director Pompeo?
None.
Do you know why the Obama administration objected to those two provisions in late 2016? I would add, after the 2016 presidential election?
Well, it'd be pure speculation. I couldn't read. I wasn't able to read the president's mind then, and I don't think I can read it now.
Thank you. I'd like to turn my attention to a very important provision of law I know that you've discussed earlier, Section 702. Director Rogers, it's my understanding that your agency is undertaking an effort to try to release some kind of unclassified estimate of the number of U.S. persons who might have been incidentally collected using 702 techniques. Is that correct?
So we're looking to see if we can quantify something that's of value to people outside the organization?
Would that require you going in and conducting searches of incidental collection that have been previously unexamined?
That's part of the challenge. How do I generate insight that doesn't, in the process of generating the insight, violate the actual tenets?
Well, I was going to say, you're trying to produce an estimate that is designed to protect privacy rights, but to produce that estimate, you're going to have to violate privacy rights?
That is a potential part of all of this.
Seems hard to do.
Yes, sir. That's why it has taken us a period of time, and that's why we're in the midst of a dialogue.
Is it going to be possible to produce that kind of estimate without some degree of inaccuracy or misleading information or infringing upon the privacy rights of Americans?
Probably not.
If anyone in your agency, or for that matter, Director McCabe, in yours, believes that there is misconduct or privacy rights are not being protected, they could, I believe, under current law, come to your Inspector General, come to your General Counsel. I assume you have open door policies?
Whistleblower protections in addition, yes?
Yes, sir.
And they can come to
They
you.
could come to this
They
committee.
come to committee.
So at least 4 different avenues, I'm probably missing some, if they believe there are any abuses in the Section 702
And anyone in their chain of command.
Yeah.
I would ask that we proceed with caution before producing a report that might infringe on Americans' privacy rights needlessly, and that might make it even that much harder to reauthorize a critical program, something that Director McCabe, your predecessor last week, just characterized, if I can paraphrase, as a must-have program, not a nice-to-have program. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cotton. Senator Harris.